Hello and a big welcome to the channel. I'm the Motorsport Madman and this is the driver ratings for the 2022 season. This will probably be the last video I do about the 2022 season. It's old news now. The season finished like 10 days ago. So yeah, dragging it out a bit, but might as well. We've got nothing else to do on the channel. So yeah, big welcome to the channel if you are watching. So yeah, let's jump into it. This was the championship standings at the end of the season, but I am not basing. Let me just trim that down. We've got a horrible green background. Yeah, but I am not basing any of this really on championship standings. To be perfectly honest with you, it's got nothing to do with that. This is just about driver performance. Obviously, my opinion on how they've been performing over a full season, who's had a great season, who's had a bit of a stinker. But yeah, as we see with the actual points at the end of the season, Verstappen absolutely walked it. Obviously he's had a phenomenal season, whether you're ranking it by points or whether by how good they've driven throughout the year. Verstappen is top of the table. Unbelievably, George Russell, 4th in the championship. Hamilton only 6th in the championship in the end. Leclerc beat Perez to 2nd in the championship by only 3 points. So that was a close battle. And then going down there, obviously you've got your top 6 in a different league. And then Lando Norris in no man's land, really, 122 points. He had a good season, did Lando, but obviously the McLaren not good enough to challenge for wins. And I think he just got the one podium. I think he was the only other driver outside the top 6 to get a podium all season, which is it's a bit of a dead one, really. 2022 was not, as we went through in the last video, went through all the races. What was the 2 9 out of 10 races, a couple of 8.5 out of 10 races that I gave, couple of 8s, but on the whole, a lot of races I ranked them 3 out of 10, 4 out of 10, 5 out of 10 races. You know, the ones where Max just absolutely walked it and not a lot happened. You know, they were getting 2, 3, 4 out of 10, and that was a multiple races this year. So hopefully next year can be a much more competitive season. But yeah, that's how it ended up. The constructors as well was a bit more interesting, actually. Mercedes didn't beat Ferrari in the end. They shouldn't do, really, with the car that Ferrari had all season. So it's Ferrari got 2nd, Mercedes 3rd. Then the Alpine-McLaren battle went right to the death, the full 22 rounds. Alpine ended up coming out on top of that battle by, nearly 20 points in the end. So yeah, Alpine beat McLaren to 4th. Interestingly, Alfa Romeo and Aston Martin ended up the season neck and neck on 55 points each. Now, I don't know how they decided that Alfa finish ahead of Aston in the end. It probably due to maybe Alfa Romeo got a 5th place along the way, and I think maybe the best Aston Martin got was a P6, so it might be down to technicals. With Alfa Romeo and Aston Martin incredibly close there for P6. Then obviously Haas and AlphaTauri were battling out for 8th in constructors as well. That was incredibly close. But yeah, that was how the table was. But I'm going to make my own table now based on who I think's performed well, regardless of the machinery they're in. So, for example, Alexander Albon, down there on 4 points, 19th in the table. Put it this way, he isn't the 19th best driver on the grid this season. He's just in the worst car. So I will do a table based on who I think's driven the best, down from the worst to the best, based on without the car, you know, without the machinery, whether they're driving a Red Bull or Williams or whatever they're driving. I'm going to judge them all the same, judge them against each other. I was going to give them like a mark out of 10, but I feel that's a little bit weird, a little bit sort of like disrespectful. Like, who am I to give a Daniel Ricciardo like a 2 out of 10 season? Like, it ain't right. So I'll just judge them against each other. So yeah, we'll go through it. Let me get on the right screen. Right, so, and obviously we'll go through the results that they've had throughout the season, so I've got something to back it up. You know, I'm not just plonking Latifi P20 without any reasons. So yeah, as is probably in any of these videos that anyone will do, ranking the drivers, rating the drivers, whatever you want to call it, it is going to be Latifi 20th. regardless, now I know he's in the slowest car, but he has had an absolute stinker. Why have I got? I always have green screen issues. Always have the green screen issues. Let me just see if I move further back. See if that helps. Yeah, we're all right. I might have a bit of a flickery. We always have a flickering. But yeah. Oh, that's gonna be shit, isn't it? All the whole video like that with a flickering head. I might be able to change that. We got someone on a black thing, right? No, I'll leave it. No point messing with it now. I messed with it before and I thought, yeah, it looks fine that, and then now we're on it, boom, full green. We'll see how we've got to deal with the flickering in it. Yes, Kim, how we going? Right, so P20. Why is Latifi 20th? Yes, he was 20th in the driver's standings out of 20, but he's also in my ratings the 20th and worst driver on the grid. See if I can make it a bit better. There we go. Maybe it'll be less flickering now. Nope, still going to flicker above my head. It just does my head in. It just fucking look at that. Why does no one else have these green screen issues? Why have people? It's not even worth doing a green screen if it's just going to be like that. But yeah, Latifi's had an absolute stinker, mate. Whichever way you turn it. And it was topped off by Latifi being lapped by Albon in one of the later races. I can't remember which race it was. It was one of the ones at the end of the season. It was either like Mexico or US. One of them. Albon lapped him in the same car. It's just that's unforgivable. Like that's extremely rare, and that puts him firmly in the bin. And obviously, he's had 3 years, Nicholas Latifi. Let's look at his results. Yes, Anto, welcome to the stream, mate. Now let's get up Nicholas Latifi's results. We'll go on that. So you can see, so this is Nicholas Latifi and all the results throughout the season, and why I've put him last. I mean, look at that. I mean, where was his only place? He got a 9th in Japan, was the only 2 points that he got all season. So, you know, he's had a stinker. He's not even been close to the points. I mean, look at the finishing positions, 16th, 15th. You know, you're talking average finishing position like 16th, 17th. So he's not even pushing for points. Whereas you see Alex on the other side, which he's much higher up the driver ratings. You know, even though he's 19th in the championship, he's had a much better season. Even though the 19th and 20th in the championship, Alex has had a much better season. You know, his average finishing position is looking, I mean, look at those results down there. It's like 12th, 13th. So he's had a much better season. Welcome in, Keith. Cheers, Keith. Thank you. Right, so that is my reasoning for putting putting Latifi last on the ting. Now, P19 in my driver ratings for 2022, it's got to be Daniel Ricciardo. It's got to be. I don't want to put him down there. I might be able to put some music on. Hang on a minute. Let's have a look. See if we can get a bit of music on. Just makes the thing less dead, doesn't it? Can we hear that? Are we cool with that? Is that a bit loud? I'll put it there. See if we live with that. But yeah, I've got to go Ricciardo as low as 19th. Unfortunately, he did have a few races, especially in the last third of the season, where it wasn't that bad. And I was thinking, you know, he's picked up a P9 or been relatively close to Lando, where I thought, you know, all's not lost. But on the whole, you know, I feel like that's a bit loud now. On the whole, Ricciardo's had an absolute stinker. No wonder he's been dropped from McLaren. He did have a contract for next season as well, but that's just been ripped up. And he's going to be Red Bull's reserve driver, is Daniel Ricciardo, in 2023. That's just been confirmed in the last few days. I don't know why it's like fuzzy at the behind my head there. I don't know. Doesn't matter how I sit, it's going to happen. One of them. It's annoying as hell. Yeah, Daniel Ricciardo. What more is there to say? He's been the 19th best driver, in my opinion, out of the 20 this season. Not good. And he's going to find himself on the sidelines now. Can he get back into Formula 1? He's going to be, what, 32, 33? He'd struggled to get back into Formula One now at be like 33 years of age. But you never know. Never say never, because Yuki Tsunoda has also had a bit of a shocking season, and it's make or break for Yuki next season. So we see how we go on that one. Right, let's just have a look quickly at the reasons why I've put Daniel Ricciardo P19. Let's have a look at the McLaren results. So Ricciardo's results there throughout the whole season, as you can see. Goodbye Binotto, yes. Welcome in Farhan, welcome in Gav as well. Yeah, goodbye Binotto as well, yeah. Good riddance to him. He was absolute, not been good. If you don't know, the Ferrari boss, or in the the Formula One side of it anyway, has resigned today as well. So big news for Formula One. Mattia Binotto, who had an absolute shambolic season, is rightly gone. I say bring back Maurizio Arrivabene, but he might have moved on to new things now. He might not fancy it, but if it was up to me, I'd bring back Arrivabene. He was your top man. But yeah, so as you can see, I've put Daniel Ricciardo 19th in my driver ratings because of the shocking season he's had in what is arguably the fourth fastest car on the grid. He's barely got any points, 37 points as opposed to Lando's 122. So what, he's scored like less than a quarter of what, around about a quarter, innit, of what Lando Norris has scored. So it's unbelievable. So I've had to put Daniel Ricciardo P19 on my list. Now, who else has had a stinker? Yeah, man, Yuki Tsunoda. I've got him as low as 18th. Because, listen, Yuki's not in his rookie season anymore. This is Yuki's second season. You can forgive a bad first season, you can forgive a bad rookie season, but on season 2 you've got to start kicking on. You've got to show that you are an elite level driver. I always say it in my watch alongs, like, you've got to show that bit of magic. You've got to have that X factor where you go, wow. And have we seen that from Yuki Tsunoda? I think his highlight has got to be Imola. I think he finished 7th or 8th in Imola. That's got to be that is the highlight of the season for him. Other than that, I've seen him bin it in the wall a few times. And then other than that, it's been anonymous P16 finishes, P14, P15, P16 finishes. There's not really been any moments where you go, wow, Yuki Tsunoda. And for me, that's what you need. Is he at Juventus? Just resigned from that job? No way. Going to the Alfa Romeo team, Prince. That's the rumour, isn't it? Fred Vasseur. Yeah, he'd probably get it when the Fred Vasseur. But Arrivabene for the win, mate. He was a solid imp, and they sacked him for finishing second. You know what I mean? In a much worse car than they had this year. Arrivabene would have fought Red Bull right to the end if he was in charge this season. He'd have got them all together. He'd have bashed their heads together and say, listen, we've got the fast car here. Let's fight for it. But anyway, yeah, so I've got Yuki Tsunoda down in 18th. Why? Let's have a look at his results. Yuki Tsunoda's results is on the bottom of the page on this side. As you can see there, he picks up the odd point every now and then during the year. He started off great with a P8 in Bahrain. And then look at that, you've got the 7th in Imola, which is definitely the highlight. So after the first 4 races, it's not actually looking that bad. He's got a P8 and a P7 out of the first 4 races. And then it just tails off. He's 17th, 13th, DNF 14th, 16th. And he's nowhere near the points. DNF 19th, 13th, DNF. It's just nowhere near. And then scrapes a point in the US. Other than that, beyond Imola, has he only scored 1 point? After Imola? I think so. Just looking through the results. I think he scored 1 point since Imola, Yuki Tsunoda. And that's why he's down as low as P18 for me in my ratings. Big season for Yuki Tsunoda. I think it's make or break for Tsunoda in 2023. Obviously keeps his seat, but yeah, needs to improve. Now, a very sad one for me. But I have to face the truth. I didn't want to put him this low, but I have to face the truth that Mick Schumacher has not had a good season. He's not had a good season, and for me to be surprised and outraged and all the rest of it about him being dropped would just be bollocks. You know, if I was sat here going, he should never have been dropped, what a load of rubbish, I'd be lying to myself. He's not had a good year, Mick, unfortunately. That might be it for Formula One. I hope it's not. I hope he gets another go in a year or two, and gets another chance at Formula One, because he's only 23 years old. He's got his full career ahead of him, but he's not been good enough, has he? Really, the reality of it. He picked it up in the last third of the season, but by then it was too late, and the Haas was too slow. So what's the saying? A day late and $1 short for Mick Schumacher in the end. By the time he picked up his performances, the decision had already been made that he was going to be dropped. He's had too many big crashes. I think Yuki's on the last side. Commentator, what? Hey lad, you come commentator for one commentator, eh? Hey Keith, I need a sidekick. Yeah, I need a second commentator for next season. Yeah, that'll be good, won't it? Co-commentator for season 2. Nah, it'd be season 2 on my own, and it co-commentator fucking season 5 or something like that. Did he get the Mercedes test seat? No, nothing's been confirmed with Mick. The rumour is that he will get the reserve role, the third driver role at Mercedes, but that's just conjecture at the moment. I hope he does get that. Obviously, if you're not going to be on the grid, being a third driver for Mercedes is probably your next best thing. You know, if Russell or Hamilton get ill and all of a sudden you're in like a winning car, you know, your career's back on again. You know, you perform well in that. Apologies for the green screen. It looks like I got green fuzzy hair coming out the top of my hat every now and then. I don't know what that's in aid of. I don't know why. And no matter how much I mess with the settings before I come live, I think I've sorted it. I never have. So apologies if it's a bit wacky. But I am green screen's biggest nightmare. So that's just how it is. Yeah, so I got Mick Schumacher 17th. We'll have a look at why. Let me get that off the screen and put in the Haas results. So Mick's results are down there, and you can see why I've put him 17th. I mean, you know, I am a big fan of Mick, but you can't deny that he's not had a good enough season to warrant another. I wish he had done. You know, in some races there was hope. I remember in the middle of the season when he got that 8th at the British Grand Prix and 6th in Austria, there round 10 and round 11. I was like, this on. I was like, Mick, here we go. Mick's career is now taken off. But that was the highlight. That was the blip in a sea of P15s, P16s, P17s. And a few crashes along the way as well, and a few hefty crashes. The one in Monaco where he split the car in half, that cost him millions. And then the one in Japan was the unforgivable one, because the session had ended. It was a practice session. It had finished, and then Mick goes and puts a wheel on the grass, spins into the wall, millions of quid's worth of damage after the session's over. It's like, you're not helping yourself out if you're doing that. Yes, Ernesto, welcome in, mate. Welcome to the stream. Just going through my driver ratings, and unfortunately we're up to Mick Schumacher, who I've put him 17th. So let's move on then to Zhou Guanyu. Zhou Guanyu, I have put P16, the Chinese driver. It was his rookie season. And he didn't have a disaster. You know, I put 4 drivers lower than him. He didn't have a disaster, but I think he only scored 6 points. Let's look at his results now. I can get them up here. Zhou Guan Yu for Alfa Romeo. So these were his results throughout the season. Starts off well with a point in Bahrain, but only gets another 5 points throughout the entire season. Now, the only reason I've not got Zhou Guan Yu lower than what I got him on my list, I've got him 16th. Now, the only reason I've got him 16th and not any lower is because during the end of the season, regardless of the race results, where, I mean, look at that, it's a sea of like 14th, 16th, 12th, 13th, you know, it's anonymous. But in qualifying, he was beating Valtteri Bottas on more than a few occasions in the second half of the season, and that's what's boosted Zhou Guan Yu up a little bit in my estimations, because I think, there is a driver there. Big year for Zhou Guan Yu. I said in one of the watch-alongs, it's a big year for this man Zhou Guan Yu, and a big year for Yuki Tsunoda in 2023, as well as, you know, a lot of other drivers. It's make or break as well, but especially for those two, I feel like if they don't perform, it's you've had a go and see you later. But it's not a bad rookie season. It's just when you compare it to Valtteri's 49 points, it's a bit... He could have got a few more points on the board in the first half of the season. But he is a rookie, so, you know, I'll give him a bit of grace. And he has gone into 16th on my ratings. Now, let's move on to Pierre Gasly. Now, I've always rated Pierre Gasly very highly, and I will probably come out next season being a Pierre Gasly fan, to be fair, because he has always been one of my favourites. And I think with the move to Alpine in 2023, I think it's going to be a fresh start, a much needed fresh start for Pierre. But this year's been one to forget. It's been one. I think it's been his worst season. I think Pierre Gasly, he's come off the back of like 2 good seasons for Toro Rosso turning into AlphaTauri. He's coming off the back of 2 good seasons, if my memory serves me well. Now, the counter argument is he's not had a good car. He's not. The AlphaTauri, I mean, where did they end up in the championship? 9th in the end, when all's said and done. I think AlphaTauri ended the championship 9th out of 10 teams. So he's not had a good car. But he's also not had... He's not had a lot of highlights. Like, if you were to play a Pierre Gasly highlight reel from 2022 season, you'd be stuck for clips after 1 or 2. I think he had a good result in Baku. Well, let's get the results on now. Of why I've put Pierre as low as what I got him as low as 15th. Let's have a look why. Because they finished 9th in the championship. These are Pierre Gasly's results on this side of the screen. Starts off the season well, look. 8th in Saudi, 9th in Australia. So you're thinking, alright, the car's not amazing, but you're picking up points. The 5th in Azerbaijan is definitely the highlight of the season for Pierre. And then other than that, he's scraping a point here and there, gets a total of 23 points, finishes 14th in the championship. You know, he's like nowhere. 9th in Belgium, 8th in Italy in the second half of the season are the only times he picks up points. Or P10 in Singapore as well. But other than that, it's just sort of skirting outside the points. Not been his best season, but I have hope and faith in Pierre Gasly, because over his like 4 or 5 years in Formula One, he has proved enough, and that's why Alpine have taken a risk on it. Even though he's not had a stellar season, they know that he's got it in him. And I'll probably be cheering on Pierre Gasly for 2023. So, but having said that, 2022, I've got him down in 15th. AlphaTauri was a crap car. It was, man. It was. Can't wait fireworks. I know. Gasly and Ocon, mate. And their careers are so similar. I saw some stats about Gasly and Ocon's career. They both won one race each. They both had, I think, the same number of podiums. They both had the same junior careers. It's crazy how similar of a career Gasly and Ocon have had to this point. But yeah, he's not had a classic season, but I imagine he'll do much better next year. Now, I have got Lance Stroll, P14. Now, a lot of people think Lance Stroll is absolutely terrible. You know, if I say a bit more forward, is that better? Yeah, I think that's a bit better. Yeah, a lot of people have got Lance Stroll as being absolutely terrible. I haven't. I'm in the camp that he's not absolutely phenomenal. Like, he's not going to win championships. But I feel like Lance Stroll's good enough and he's proven over, he's been in Formula One since I think 2017. So he's had like 5 full seasons. And I think over those 5 or 6 full seasons that he's had, I think Lance has more than proved that he's good enough to be in Formula One. Money or not, whether he has major backing or not, I think Lance is good enough. Now he's not had like I say, he's not a phenomenal. How often do you go, Lance Stroll? What a move! Never. Truth be told. But he's not had an absolute stinker, has he? Lance Stroll has picked up a few points on the way as the Aston Martin has improved over the year. He's got some P10s, P9s. So let's get his results on the screen now. Why I've got him in P14 on my driver ratings. There is Lance Stroll's results down that side. P6 in Singapore. But as you can see, there's the odd P10 finish. And listen, the Aston Martin wasn't great. He got 18 points out of it. It wasn't a great car, was it, the Aston Martin? Especially first half of the season, it was a shocker. They did improve a lot in the second half of the season. Did Aston Martin. They come on strong. And scores points in the last 2 races of the season. So, far from being in the Lance Stroll hate category, I think he's actually pretty decent. I think Stroll is lucky. You reckon he's lucky? I reckon he's all right. I'm not in his fan club. I don't think he's winning championships. But, I don't think he's as bad as all that. So yeah, I've got him in P14. Let's move on to... Now, I feel a bit harsh with this, but I've got Bottas 13th. And I think it's because in the second half of the season, he died off so much. He had a great first few races. Now, this is partly due to the car as well. As other teams have developed, Alfa Romeo dropped back as the season went on. But the second half of the season, Valtteri's been utterly anonymous. Whether it's through DNFs, engine blow-ups, which is obviously not his fault, which I'm not rating this on how many engine blow-ups you've had. Alonso had a horrendous luck with DNFs, but he's high up on my list because I'm not going off reliability. This is just on how they performed in the races, in my opinion. I've got Valtteri as low as 13th because despite this good start to the season, it tailed off so horrendously that I think he only scored 2 points in the second half of the season, something like that, as opposed to the 48 points he scored in the first half of the season. So it tailed off so bad that it kind of really put him in like the top 10. Maybe it's harsh, 13th, but I just think it tailed off so bad. And I'll have a look at the results now. Let me get the Aston ones off the screen. Alfa Romeo. So Bottas is on this side. These are all his results. Look at the amount of DNFs as well. Hungary, Belgium, Netherlands, 3 DNFs in a row is crazy. Nothing to do with him, not his fault. But it just totally took him out of any, like... I don't remember any Valtteri Bottas highlights or overtakes or even mentioning him in the second half of the season. Like literally, I don't even remember saying his name or anything memorable in the entire second half of the season. Now he started off fantastic. Look at that: P6 Bahrain, Australia 8th, Imola 5th, Miami 7th, Spain 6th. Look at those first 6 races. At that point, he's well inside the top 10 of drivers this season. But it just from there on, from Spain, Monaco onwards, it's like 2 points. So that has dropped him down. I'm not going to lie, that has dropped him down in my estimation this season, and it's cost him a top 10 in my list, which he'll be absolutely devastated about, I'm sure. He ended up 10th in the championship, 49 points. I don't know how he held on to 10th in the championship. It's just mad considering he scored like 2 points in the entire second half. If I've got Hamilton first, it's rigged. Have to wait and see, won't you, Gav? You have to wait and see. Maybe I have. Right, so that's Valtteri, P13. 12th, I've got your man on pole in Brazil, Kevin Magnussen. I reckon he had a decent season, Kevin. We're getting to the point where I think 13th down, they've not had a great season. Now we're getting into the point where you go, he's had a pretty good year. I think Kevin had a pretty decent year. The obviously the pole in Brazil has definitely moved him up a few places. I'd probably have him 14th or 15th. If it wasn't for 3 weeks ago slapping it on pole position, that's moved him up for me. It was a moment of the season for me, to be honest with you. I probably said that in the race review review of the races last week. Magnussen's pole position was epic. Moment of the season. Other than that, I mean, the second half of the season has been pretty anonymous. Let's have a look at their results. So this is obviously Kevin's results throughout the season. Haas starts off well. Look, the 5th, 9th, couple of 9th place finishes. They're inside the points, and then it just flipping it from Spain onwards. There's barely a point to be had. I mean, you know, Britain 10th, Austria 8th, and then look at that entire second half of the season, that entire list on the right there, and there isn't a point to be had. There's a couple of points in the US, and that is it. Even in Brazil with the pole, he ended up dropping down in the sprint race, and then got took out on lap 1 in the actual Grand Prix. So the pole position actually counted for nothing in the end, but. You know, Formula One works. I think Kevin's had a decent enough season for me to put him 12th. Yeah, no worries, Kim. Yo, Ways, how we doing, bro? Hope you're doing well. So yeah, got Kevin, a nice P12. Not a shocking season from Kevin by any means. Now I've got an impressive. These are starting to get into the people that have had a good year, like I'm saying now. I've got an impressive Alexander Albon, 11th on my driver ratings. Now. This is exactly what I'm saying. This is why I'm not going off the championship, because Alex scored a total of 4 points this season. Nothing. He's in the worst car. He's finishing 16th every week. But I've put him 11th on my driver ratings. Why? Because Alex has had a good season with the machinery he's had, especially compared to teammate P20 Latifi. Especially compared to Latifi. Let's have a look at... let me hide that. Get up Williams' results, and these are Alexander Albon's results throughout the season. And as you can see, whilst he's not scoring points every week because he's driving the slowest car on the grid, whilst he's not in the points, he's had a good go. Look at the results. He's 12th. He's on the edge of the points every time. 11th, 12th, 13th. Whereas Nicky's down 17th, 18th, 19th. He's well out of it. Alex had a good season. You know, scraped the points when he could. The 10th in Australia, 9th in Miami, 10th in Belgium. He got the points when he had the chance to, and when he couldn't get points, he was pretty close. You know, a lot of P12s in there, P13s, where on a different day with some unreliability ahead, he's going to get a point. I think Alex has had a perfectly good season, and yeah, obviously he's going to be with Logan Sargent next season. So Latifi's gone. It's going to be Albon and Sargent. And I think I think Albon will go from strength to strength. Um, so yeah, I think he's had a good season, Alex. Let me get that off the screen. And now we're getting to the top 10. Okay, now we're getting to the real stuff. Now I've put Carlos Sainz 10th. I just I think he's been good. I think he's been good, Sainz. But has he been fantastic? I don't think so. He won. He won the one race. He won the British Grand Prix. He challenged for another couple of races. I think in Canada he should have won. I can't remember. There's one or two other occasions where you think maybe he should have won that one. I've Maybe it's unfair. I think some other people might have him as high as 6th or 7th in their rating, something like that. But for me, I just think Science has been a little bit missed opportunity through one reason or another. And I think he's had a lot of bad luck as well, which is also maybe psychologically for me that's moved him down a bit, even though it's not his fault. He's just had such horrendous luck through one reason or another. I can't put him any higher because there's a group of drivers that have had a great season, and Carlos is just at the back end of that. I will just quickly look at his results in the Ferrari. I mean, look at the two back-to-back DNFs in Japan, US, for example. It's just like, has he had a fantastic season, Carlos Sainz? No. Has he had an awful season? No. Is it somewhere in between? Yes, it is. It's somewhere in between. He's had a decent year, but he'll be looking to have a much better season next. Even in terms of luck, he'd be looking. He's got to have a better season next season in terms of luck. You can't be breaking down 6 or 7 times in a 20 race calendar. You can't not finish a third of the races. You're done. It's game over. He ended up 5th in the championship. 246 points, good, 50, 60 points behind Leclerc. So it's not a disaster, but it's not been great. Only good enough for P10. Hi, Ryan, tune. Welcome in, Ryan. I'm good at ways. Waiting for the England game. This stream will be finished long before England kick off, so don't worry about that. But yeah, I've only got Science P10. I don't think it warrants anything higher than that because of the drivers coming up who have had great seasons. So I have got 4-time world champion and now retired Sebastian Vettel P9 in my driver ratings. He's had a good season, Vettel, especially the second half of the season. He's been great. He started off rocky because he missed the first 2 seasons because he was ill. The first 2 races of the season because he was ill. Then he jumped back in, and I think it took him a few races to get going. And then the Aston Martins also improved throughout the year. But second half of the season, Vettel's been really good. There's been more than a few occasions where I've been doing the streams, doing the watch-alongs, and being like, Vettel. Fantastic drive. Why, has he retired too soon? I feel like he might have just thrown in the towel a year or two early. Sebastian Vettel, I think he's had a great season. And I've got him P9. Let's have a look at his results. Let me get up Aston Martin. So we have got Sebastian Vettel there. 4 stars for the 4 World Championships, won back-to-back World Championships. Put some respect on the name, because a lot of modern Formula 1 fans think Vettel's just some also-ran. No, he had glory days, Sebastian Vettel. But yeah, as you can see, first half of the season, what stands out to me is the P8 in Imola, P6 Azerbaijan, which is in an Aston Martin that was the 9th quickest car. Some drive in Azerbaijan. Then it sort of peters out. Then by the time we get to like Singapore, mate, it's game on. The last third of the season, even the P8 in Belgium's great. But that last third of the season from Singapore to the end, 8th, 6th, 8th, 14th, 11th, 10th. Flipping 8th, 6th, Singapore, Japan, US. he's got like 15, 20 points out of it, out of those 3 races alone. At that point, I'm thinking, retiring, really? I think he even led the US Grand Prix for a couple of laps just because of the way the strategy played out, and he was on, he hadn't stopped yet or whatever. But he was like top 5 in the US. He should have been top 5 in the US, ended up 8th, which is like an injustice. But yeah, Vettel's had a great. Yeah, Sainz 10th, Gav. Where would you have him? Where would you put him? Much higher than that, really? I don't feel like it's that shocking. Maybe you'd have him 7th or 8th, maybe on your, if you were to do a list. But Sainz has been not had a phenomenal season. But yeah, Vettel, I've got 9th. I think he's had a good season, and yeah, happy retirement to him. Right, now we're getting into the people that have had. Now, this may seem a bit harsh, this one I changed around a few times whilst I was like lining all these up and deciding where I was going to put everyone. This changed a few times, and it is going to seem harsh, especially if you're a Norris fan. I've got him 8th. Now, you could have him as high as, I think, 5th. If you were generous, you could have him 5th. If you were harsh, you're having him 8th. I'm on a harsh one. It's 8th. And it's purely for the reason that whilst Lando has had, I don't know if to say good or great, whilst he's had a very solid season, he's not had many moments of like. And the thing is, with the McLaren being that 4th fastest car a lot of the time, you've got that top 3 group. You've got the Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes. They're running away. They're in their own category. And then you've got Lando there in that P7 spot. But he's just not had enough magic this season for me to warrant putting him up there in the top 5, for example. If you're going to be in my top 5, you've got to have had moments where you're going, wow, he's done something incredible there. Now, aside from his podium in Imola, when else have you gone incredible from Lando? If you were to do a highlights reel of Lando Norris's season, it's very difficult because it's that McLaren. He's not had the car to be challenging though. So there's always a counter argument to it. But I just feel like there's some other drivers on this grid that have had slightly better seasons than Lando, and that's purely just because he's not had that. I've not had that magic. Let's get his results up now. This is no slate. Not slating Lando Norris. He's had a good season. He's 7th in the championship, 122 points, and he's virtually been in the points every single week. But has he produced magic? Maybe on the odd occasion. The podium in Imola is a real standout. If it had sneaked in a podium or some mad result in the second half of the season, it'd be more in my thoughts. He probably would have moved up a couple of positions, definitely. Or some crazy qualifying result where he's on the front row, or he's broken into the top 5 in quali, or something that you go, wow, a wow moment would have moved him up a couple of positions. But there's a couple of guys ahead of him that I feel like I've had wow moments. So yeah, I've got Lando down in probably what would be regarded as quite a harsh P8, and I respect that. I've got Sergio Perez P7. This is also a little bit of a harsh one, but I feel like on a lot of occasions Sergio has been so far behind Max and almost so anonymous, just bringing it home in P4 or bringing it home in P5 or P6 or something. I think there's just been too many races where Max has dominated. They've got the quickest car on the grid, and Sergio's just cruised home to a P5, and it's like, really, you should be up there with Max. There should have been a lot more 1-2s. I think there was only one race where they finished 1-2, I think, or 1 or 2. There wasn't many where they actually finished 1-2, and there should have been a handful, at the least. So while Sergio has had a good season with the 2 wins, I think he won in Monaco, won in Singapore, So you can't certainly can't put him in the bottom half, can you? But has he had a season where you go, wow, Sergio Perez? The first third of the season, I think he was in with half a shout at being in the championship fight. I remember him. I think he led into turn one in Azerbaijan, which is like round 8. He led into turn one, and it was like, oh, hang on a minute, is Sergio Perez in the championship battle this season? But from then on, it was never mentioned again. He was just tailed off, and I ended up putting Sergio P7. Let's just have a quick look at his results throughout the season then for that. For my P7 ranking, these are his results. Bear in mind, his teammate of this bloke here that's won 15 races out of the 22. These are his results. It's good. It's good. But it's not phenomenal, is it? He's not had a phenomenal year, Sergio Perez. He's had a solid year. And a year to build on, and a year to maybe look back and think, I had a couple of wins. Third in the championship in the end, beaten by Leclerc in the final round. There's good and bad from Sergio Perez. Perez should be number 1. Only if you're Mexican or something, you put Perez number. Even Mexicans would probably put Perez number 2, wouldn't they? Even Mexicans would know that Max has had a bloody brilliant season. But yeah, I've got him down in P7. Not a disaster, a solid season for Sergio Perez with the 2 wins. Right, now we're getting top 6. Top 6, who are we going? He should be higher than Hamilton. No, Lewis has been good. Lewis has been, just because he's not won a race doesn't mean he's had a terrible season. You just think deeper about it. Think what those Mercedes boys have got out of that car, and pretty much they've got the absolute maximum out of it. I have got Esteban Ocon as P6 in my driver ratings. He's had a good season, Esteban Ocon. I think he's the most underrated. I always say it in my watch-alongs. I think Esteban Ocon is the most underrated driver on the grid. I think he's had a great season, really consistent, stays out of trouble most of the time, just brings the car home, consistently like P6, P7. Well, let's have a look at his results. I think he's had a better season than Norris. I think Ocon and Norris have had very, very similar seasons. You could switch them round. If you're a Norris fan, you're going to put Norris ahead. If you're an Ocon fan, you're going to put Ocon ahead. I'm trying to be neutral, and I think Esteban Ocon has just by a smidgen had a better season. Let's have a look at it. Alpine. Sean, how we doing? Bring back Nico. What, Nico Rosberg? Well, swim, mate. He was the only driver that I didn't like, Nico Rosberg. Definitely don't bring him back. Yeah, Esteban Ocon, I have got him P6 in my driver ratings. And it's sheer consistency. It's points virtually every single week. Despite, I have got a feeling, really, over the season, that the McLaren was a stronger car. But the reason why Alpine have beat him is because McLaren are running one-legged. Well, you've got Daniel Ricciardo in the other car, who's in the worst form of his entire career, and he's not scoring any points, so you're giving it to Alpine. I think Lando, on the whole, has had a better car, but Esteban Ocon has got near enough the absolute maximum out of that Alpine. These two together have done a great job, a fantastic job for Alpine throughout the season. P8 and P9 in the championship. Ocon ended up with 92 points. A look at the consistency. A couple of DNFs in Britain. I think he was involved in that first lap thing. DNF in Singapore. I can't even remember what happened with that. But other than that, he's virtually in the points every single week. In a decent car, but perhaps not in a car that's that's capable of those kind of finishing positions every single week. I have got Esteban Ocon P6 on my driver ratings, and now we get into the top 5. Now it's the big boys. Fernando Alonso, still got it. It's my motto. Still got it. Never lose it. Fernando Alonso, I think he's 41 years of age. He has still got it. Fernando Alonso, we've got both Alpine drivers top 6. I have Alpine, and the results. So now we're looking at this side of the screen. Fernando Alonso's results, and I tell you what, if Fernando Alonso had have had better luck reliability wise, he'd have scored a mountain more points. He'd have beaten Lando easily. But it's the DNFs. It's the technical faults. Look at that. Italy, Singapore, back-to-back DNF. I think every single DNF he's had has been an engine blow-up or some kind of mechanical failure that's outside his... it's not his fault. It's outside his control what's happened to Fernando Alonso this season. He's like 4 DNFs in the last 8 races. Without that, he'd be beating Esteban Ocon and he'd be beating Lando Norris. Fernando Alonso still got it. He might be 41 years of age. But he has had a great season. When he's finishing the race, he's a P7 at least. In the second half of that season, if he's finishing the race, he's finishing in the top 6. Top 7 every time. He's still got it, mate, and that is why he is P5 on my drive. He's been the 5th best driver on the grid this season, in my opinion, and those results just prove it. When the car doesn't blow up, he's in the top 6. Unbelievable form. P4, Gav. I'm not deluded. I haven't got Lewis top. I've got Hamilton P4. I think he's been the 4th best driver this season as Lewis. He didn't get the win. He's gone a full season for the first time in his career, full season without a win, but he's still driven very, very well, Lewis Hamilton. Both Mercedes drivers, well, obviously they're both in the top 4 because we've not seen where Russell is yet. He's had a very good season, Lewis Hamilton, with the equipment that he's had, especially the first half of the season. The Mercedes was horrible to drive in terms of with the porpoising, and he had a blipping bad back at one point. But they've got the maximum out of it. The consistency of Lewis, a lot of people will just see the raw stats that he's not won a race, he's not been in the championship fight. Oh, he's fallen off. A lot of people will be so quick to disregard Lewis Hamilton now because he's not won a race this season, and because he was not in the championship fight, they'll just think, he's crap now. A lot of people will just go, nah, old news, he's had his day, bump. Nah, Lewis will come back strong next season. Mark my words, Lewis Hamilton will be back in the fight next season. Mercedes will be back in the fight, and all of a sudden it'll be like, Lewis is still, he's still got it. And let's just have a quick look at the results. But yeah, I think there's been 3 drivers better than Lewis, but he has had a very good season. Look at the consistency of it, especially second half of the season. His podiums, I mean, other than the DNF in Abu Dhabi, which I think there was floor damage, and then I think later on in the race he got a gearbox issue or some kind of issue, didn't finish the last race, not his fault obviously, mechanical DNF. Other than that, look at that, it's 3 second places in a row to end off the season pretty much. So close to a win on 3 or 4 occasions, especially in the US. I think in the US it was really close. I think Verstappen had to overtake him with like 3 or 4 laps to go. So that was probably his nearest shot. Also in Brazil, when your man George won, Lewis followed him home in second. That was really close. So yeah, Lewis has had a really good season. It's just the car he's been given was just not capable of fighting for the championship. But he's done his best with it. And good enough for P4, in my opinion. 4th best driver on the grid. So let's go into the top 3. I have got Charles Leclerc So you know who the top two is now. I've gone Charles Leclerc third. I think he won 3 races. Let's have a look at the Ferrari. Yeah, I think he won 3 races, didn't he, Charles Leclerc? Yeah, so he won Bahrain, Austria. He won 2 out of the first 3, Leclerc, and then 1 in Austria. So Leclerc didn't win a race in the entire second half of the season. I'm just realising that as I'm saying it. But he's driven very well. Charles Leclerc has had a good season. Through no fault of his own, he's been well out of this championship battle. He has made a couple of mistakes, notably in France, when he put it in the wall, when he was on for a win. I think he's made 1 or 2. I remember the spin in Imola as well. So he has made 1 or 2 hiccups. But on the whole, Charles Leclerc's had a very good season driving-wise. Now, he's been well out of it because of Ferrari absolutely imploding in every single way, whether it's through pit stops, strategy, reliability. They've just absolutely just exploded. And so that's what's cost Charles Leclerc, not his actual driving. He's actually been Max Verstappen's nearest rival this season, I would say. You know, you can't look looking at Sergio, really. You know, Charles has been Max's nearest rival, and especially in that first, let's say the first third of the season, Charles was beating Max. And they were turning up to Grand Prix in pretty much equal machinery in that first third of the season, and Charles was beating him. You know, and then the following week Max had beat Charles, and then they go to the next race, and Charles had beat him again, and it was like the first third of the season I was thinking, we're on for a classic here. This is going to be a barnstormer season. This is going to be a great season. It's going to be Leclerc versus Verstappen, and then Ferrari just went absolute to shit, and the engines were blowing up every week, and it was game over. By mid-season, it was like white flag, game over, through no fault of his own. But Leclerc's had a great season. Mattia Binotto has now been sacked. That's news today, that the Ferrari boss, on the back of this, them building a fantastic car, but absolutely throwing it away by mid-season, on the back of that horrendous performance, managerially, Mattia Binotto rightfully has gone. He's gone. He had to go. Fred Vasseur, whoever replaces him, I think Ferrari will be a much more formidable outfit next season. They've got to be. You know, they had a decent car, but, you know, whether it's through one reason or another, it was an absolute shambles in the end. But Leclerc didn't have a shambles. P3 for me. P3 for me, my lad. So that means you can't have Max anything other than top. It's George second. George Russell has been phenomenal. George Russell has been phenomenal. There's no other way to say it. Other than Max Verstappen and his 15 wins, I mean, I might as well put Max in now. You know what I mean? Max is obviously number one this season. But George, whilst I'm just on George, he's been phenomenal. I think he's been even better than what Mercedes could have hoped and prayed for. It's his first season in a proper race. You know, George spent, was it 2 or 3 years at Williams? I think it might have even been 3 years at Williams. 19, 20 and 21 at Williams. So he's had 3 years in the doldrums on the back row of the grid. And then to be thrown in, bang, now you're in the hot seat. And to be 7-time world champion and arguably the greatest of all time, Lewis Hamilton, to come up against Lewis and beat him by 30 odd points in the championship when it's your first season in the big time, unbelievable. I think George has finished top 5 every single race other than a couple. I think it was Singapore, Japan, where he had a couple of dodgy races, but the other 20 races, or 19, I think 19 out of the 22 races, he's in the top 5. He's multiple podiums. He won the Brazilian Grand Prix. He won the Brazilian Sprint and the Grand Prix. And absolutely outstanding season from George. Let's have a quick look at at his results. But yeah, he's definitely his second best driver this season. Definitely. I don't think many people would argue with that. Let's have a look at George. So George Russell there, 4th in the championship, 275 points. So he beat Carlos Sainz in the championship, as well as his teammate, 7-time world champion Hamilton. He's beaten a Ferrari in the championship. Ferrari had the better car by a mile throughout the season. Even in the last round, you'd still be picking the Ferrari. But George beat him through sheer and utter relentlessness. Look at the results. He's top 5 every week. Every single week he is top 5. Apart from your blip in Singapore, Japan. What a season. And I think in the years to come, once Lewis has gone and Fernando's gone and the new generation, I think he'll be fighting for championships with Max. I think you're looking at Max, Charles and George. People may get added to that, but I think those 3 are going to be the ones fighting for the next 10 championships. You know, I think George has announced himself, and he's going to go strength to strength. He's in his early 20s as well. He's got his full career ahead of him. And if Mercedes pull off, if Mercedes come up with a competitive car, George is going to be right in the mix. George is going to be right in the mix for the championship. He's already beaten Lewis straight off the block. Bam, straight in. Beat Lewis by 30 points. Job done. Bang, next season. George is a big cat in the game. He's a big cat in the game now. And it'd be interesting to see where his career takes him. I think he'd be at Mercedes now. That's it. He'd be locked in. Bang. Fighting for championships every year. But yeah, it is your man, Max Verstappen. It's got to be 15 Grand Prix wins. One of the most dominant seasons that I've ever seen in Formula One. I've been watching this every race since around 2005, when Alonso was winning for Renault. 2005, 2006. And I've rarely seen seasons this dominated. As there was a couple of the Mercedes years that Hamilton dominated. There was, I think, 2013. Vettel absolutely obliterated everyone as well. But other than those, this has been a one-man show. 2022 has been a one-man show. Hopefully, this is not the sign of things to come for the next flipping 7 or 8 years, because we've seen it in Formula 1 in the past. Once someone gets ahead of steam, all of a sudden they're racking off 4 or 5 championships in a row, and it's like, Jesus, give someone else a go. Are we entering the Max Verstappen era is probably a good question. And I think we probably are. Hopefully he'll have a lot of competition from George, and a lot of competition from Charles, and a lot of competition from Lewis, and the next guy's coming up, but I think we might be in the Max Verstappen era now. 15 Grand Prix wins, a record. Obviously there's more races these days, so that stat is a little bit skewed. Most race victories in a season, because there's more races, so the stat is not 100% pure on that one. But listen, he's had a phenomenal season. Let's get up his results. Obviously he's in gold, he's the world champion. Red Bull in gold as well. Red Bull dominated the Constructors' Championship as well. 454 points. Absolutely obliterated. He's 150 points ahead of his teammate in exactly the same car. So that's like 8-9 Grand Prix wins ahead of his teammate. Ridiculous. And look at the results. Look at the results in that bottom corner of the screen there. It's like a chunk of like 4 or 5 wins and then one blip, and then another chunk of 4 wins and then a blip, and then another chunk of 4 wins and then a blip. It's unbelievable. It's just one of those seasons where no one could get near him. By the time we got to like, I'd say Canada, where he's won like 5 or 6 out of the first 9, it's like, this is looking ominous. And then definitely by the time you're in round 12, like France, Hungary, Belgium, Netherlands, Italy, and he's winning those 5 in a row, it's like, hang on a minute, this is done. But yeah, hopefully it's please, I pray that it is much, much closer next season. But yeah, that is it. That is how I have got my driver ratings for this season. Verstappen, Russell, Leclerc, Hamilton, Alonso, top 5. And down at the bottom, unfortunately, the guys that have had a stinker: Schumacher, Tsunoda, Ricciardo, Latifi. And 3 out of those bottom 5 don't have a seat. So Schumacher probably with the reserve role at Mercedes, hopefully, kind of. And then Ricciardo is going to have a reserve role at Red Bull, which is not a bad place to be, is it? Back at Red Bull, doing simulator work and whatever. And Latifi, maybe he'll end up in IndyCar or something like that. So they've lost a seat. Big season for Tsunoda next season. He's got to improve. Big season for Zhou Guanyu. It'll be his 2nd season. Big season for Pierre Gasly. He's not had a great year, but he's moving to Alpine. So he should be on this side of the screen come in 12 months' time. Gasly should be over this side, having a great season. Stroll, Bottas, mid. Magnussen, couple of outstanding ones. Albon, solid. Sainz, solid. Vettel, good. Norris, great season. Perez, yeah, good. Ocon, then was from those top 6 have had a great season. It's all been about one man though. Cheers, Keith. Cheers, guys. But yeah, that is probably all I'll do about. That's probably all I'll do on the 2022 season. Probably next video I'll be looking at the 2023 grid. I'll be looking forward from now on. I think this sort of wraps up. We've done the season review, with ranking all the races and how good each race was. Now we've done the drivers, ranking the drivers at how good a season they've all had or bad season they've had in these guys. But yeah, so we've gone through it. I think that's pretty much it. I could do a stream on Vettel's career, because obviously 4-time world champion Vettel's just retired, so I could do a stream going through his career, but that might be a hell of a lot of preparation for not a lot of payoff on that one. So we'll see about that. But probably the next video in the next week or something will probably to do with 2023 and looking forward. But yeah, thanks for joining, guys. Please do drop me. Let me just put that on, yeah. But yeah, please do drop me a like on the stream if you've enjoyed it. And I will see you next time when we'll be looking at 2023, yeah. Please do drop me a like. If you're a Formula 1 fan, get yourself subscribed. Live for every race. That won't be until March. We'll be doing some streams until then to bridge the gap. But yeah, cheers, guys, and see you on the next one. It's been a Verstappen year. But see you on the next video. Cheers, guys, and come on, England tonight. Kick off in about 45 minutes. Let's go.